There's a peculiar weight in the air when a man walks through life untouched by the frantic chase, the endless scramble to fit in, to be liked, to be needed. He moves with a calm certainty, not begging for approval or validation. No desperate reach toward belonging. He stands outside the crowd, not because he's excluded, but because he chooses not to enter the frenzy. You can almost feel it, a quiet tension, like the calm before a storm. This man is often labeled dangerous. Why? Because he doesn't lean on others to define him. He doesn't tether his worth to another's gaze or approval. But what does it truly mean to be a man who doesn't need anyone? Is he cold? Detached? Or is there something far more profound at play? The world often mistakes independence for aloofness, strength for hardness, solitude for loneliness. Yet beneath the surface lies a deeper truth, a philosophy about self-reliance, identity, and the nature of connection. Today, I want to challenge you to look beyond the labels, to ask yourself what it really means to live free from the chains of expectation and craving, to understand why this dangerous man is not a threat to others, but to the very fears that keep us all bound. The fear of being incomplete, the fear of losing control, the fear of being invisible. So lean in. Let's explore this paradox together. How can a man who doesn't chase, beg, or fit in hold the key to a different kind of strength? The answer lies in the silence between the need and the freedom. The fear of independence. Men who appear to need nothing often face an unexpected social discomfort. Society tends to label these men as cold, distant, or arrogant, interpreting their emotional self-sufficiency as a rejection or superiority over others. This reaction reveals more about collective insecurity than the individual's true nature. When a man confidently stands independent, without seeking validation or approval, it unsettles the social dynamics that rely on interdependence and shared vulnerabilities. The fear around emotionally self-sufficient men stems from what they inadvertently expose: others' own dependency and insecurities. When someone embraces independence fully, it casts a spotlight on those who struggle with reliance on others for emotional support or identity. This exposure can trigger discomfort and resentment, prompting judgments designed to undermine the independent man's stature. In reality, his lack of neediness is not arrogance, but a form of quiet strength. Emotional self-sufficiency should be seen as a form of power, not weakness. It reflects a man's ability to regulate his own emotions, maintain inner peace, and resist the pull of external validation. This autonomy allows him to act with clarity and intention, free from the distortions of fear or desperation. Far from being cold or distant, such men often cultivate deep, intentional connections rather than shallow bonds born out of dependency. Certain behaviors naturally challenge societal expectations and provoke unease. Walking away from conflicts or relationships without begging for reconciliation signals a refusal to be controlled. Not seeking approval breaks the cycle of constant validation, threatening social hierarchies built on dependency. Silence, often mistaken for aloofness, can be a powerful demonstration of control over one's inner world, unsettling those who rely on conversation as a tool for influence. In embracing emotional independence, these men redefine strength. Their power lies not in domination or exhibition, but in a calm, unwavering presence that quietly disrupts the status quo. The trap of validation and consumerism. In today's society, the quest for validation has become a powerful lever for capitalism, transforming our deepest insecurities into lucrative opportunities. Social media platforms, in particular, thrive by monetizing our dependence on approval. Every like, share, and comment fuels an addictive cycle where self-worth is measured by virtual recognition. This creates a feedback loop that not only drives engagement, but also drives consumer behavior, as users are nudged to buy products, adopt trends, and invest in their curated personas to maintain their online status. Underlying this phenomenon is the illusion that we need external validation to feel whole or worthy. Capitalism exploits this need by offering endless options: beauty products, lifestyle brands, experiences, all promising to fill the void of insecurity. The marketing machinery convinces us that we are incomplete without their products, reinforcing emotional dependency on consumer goods as stand-ins for genuine self-acceptance. Dating apps epitomize this reduction of human connection into algorithms and superficial judgments. By gamifying intimacy, these platforms foster a transactional mindset, where emotional needs are commodified and reduced to swipes and matches. The constant pursuit of approval through profiles and messages exacerbates feelings of loneliness and inadequacy, binding users more tightly to the validation trap. Yet, some resist this validation game. The man who refuses to seek approval outside himself challenges the consumerist narrative. By rejecting the need for external validation, he cultivates authentic self-worth, immune to the manipulations of social media and advertising. His autonomy disrupts the cycle of dependency and opens space for genuine connection, rooted not in algorithms or mass approval, but in self-acceptance and presence. In essence, the trap of validation and consumerism is a carefully engineered system designed to keep us yearning and consuming. Breaking free requires recognizing this cycle and reclaiming our sense of worth from within. Philosophical foundations: Jung and Nietzsche. Carl Jung's concept of individuation revolves around the psychological process of becoming a whole and authentic self. Central to this is the idea of confronting one's shadow, the unconscious, often darker aspects of the personality that society or the ego tends to reject. Individuation requires an individual to face these hidden parts honestly, integrating them into consciousness rather than repressing or denying them. This process is not just self-acceptance, but a transformative journey toward wholeness, where one reconciles inner contradictions and gains a deeper understanding of the self beyond societal roles or external expectations. Friedrich Nietzsche's idea of the Übermensch, or overman, complements this inner journey, but focuses more explicitly on existential and moral dimensions. The Übermensch is a figure who transcends traditional morality and social conventions by creating his own values. Rejecting inherited codes imposed by religion, culture, or tradition, the Übermensch forges a unique path defined by personal strength, creativity, and willpower. This self-legislating individual embodies freedom and self-mastery, shaping life according to an autonomous vision rather than conforming to external norms. Both Jung and Nietzsche illuminate the profound danger and unpredictability inherent in a man who breaks free from inherited values. When a person undertakes individuation or becomes an Übermensch, they no longer function as a predictable component within a social system governed by collective norms. Instead, they become autonomous agents who define themselves on their own terms. This self-definition makes them uncontrollable and unpredictable, because their actions cannot be anticipated through conventional frameworks. They resist being molded by external forces and often challenge established orders, threatening the stability of social, moral, or psychological systems that rely on conformity. Thus, The philosophies of Jung and Nietzsche together underscore the transformative power and inherent risks of self-realization and value creation. The man who achieves such freedom is no longer a mere product of tradition, but a dynamic force who shapes his own destiny, inviting both awe and anxiety in those bound by inherited conventions. The cost and power of solitude is often feared because it confronts us with ourselves, stripping away distractions and forcing introspection. Yet, this very fear highlights why solitude is necessary. Unlike loneliness, which is a painful sense of isolation and disconnection, true solitude is a deliberate, restorative state where one embraces being alone without feeling abandoned. It is in solitude that a person can reclaim lost energy, free from the exhausting chase for external approval. Loneliness is passive and imposed. Solitude is active and chosen. In solitude, a man disengages from the need to please others, allowing his authentic self to surface. This reclamation of personal power is essential for becoming sovereign, master of one's own mind and life. When alone, free from social masks and superficial relationships, a person can listen to their inner truth and values without compromise. Real-world examples reveal the transformative nature of solitude. Choosing truth over comfort often means walking away from convenient but false relationships or societal expectations. Such decisions are costly, as they can lead to temporary isolation or criticism. However, these moments are the crucible where one's character is forged. By ending inauthentic connections, an individual asserts control over their life narrative, prioritizing integrity over acceptance. The psychological rebellion inherent in walking alone challenges societal norms that equate worth with social validation. To stand apart is to reject conformity and embrace uncertainty, a bold act of self-sovereignty. While solitude demands courage, it ultimately yields freedom. Freedom from noise, distraction, and the hollow pursuit of external approval. The cost of solitude is discomfort and vulnerability, but its power lies in the clarity and strength gained when a man stands firmly in his own truth. 6. Traits of the dangerous man. To be a dangerous man, in the highest sense, is not to be reckless or violent. It is to be deeply grounded, fiercely honest, and fully sovereign. Here are 4 traits that define such a man. 1. Radical self-honesty. The dangerous man refuses to lie to himself. He faces uncomfortable truths without flinching. When something is dead, he buries it. When something is false, he names it. Radical self-honesty is the inner war to strip away illusion, especially self-made ones. Real-world example. Ending a long-term relationship, not because of hate, but because it was no longer built on truth. Staying would have been easier, but dishonest. Philosophical anchor. Carl Jung wrote, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate." The man who won't confront his truth is ruled by it. Challenge. When was the last time you told yourself a painful truth and acted on it? 2. Emotional sovereignty. A dangerous man doesn't outsource his emotional state. He doesn't chase validation, beg for love, or collapse when ignored. His self-worth is immune to emotional blackmail. Real-world example. Being ghosted, and instead of spiraling or seeking revenge, he simply grieves and lets go, unmoved by the silence. Philosophical anchor. Nietzsche said, "He who cannot obey himself will be commanded." Emotional sovereignty is self-command in the face of emotional chaos. Challenge. Would your self-worth survive total silence from those you seek approval from? 3. Cognitive autonomy. He does not parrot inherited beliefs. The dangerous man questions, challenges, and rebuilds his worldview, not rebelliously, but intelligently. His beliefs are chosen, not handed down. Real-world example, quietly leaving a religion, not out of anger, but clarity. Not to rebel, but to be real. Philosophical anchor. Nietzsche also wrote, "The individual has always had to struggle to keep from being overwhelmed by the tribe. Cognitive autonomy is the price of authenticity." Challenge. What beliefs do you still hold only because someone told you to? 4. Shadow mastery. The dangerous man knows his darkness and doesn't run from it. He doesn't project it onto others or repress it into quiet poison. Instead, he studies it, integrates it, and turns it into power. Real-world example, feeling anger but tracing it to buried grief, and owning it instead of lashing out. Philosophical anchor. Jung again. One does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious. Challenge. What part of your inner world do you avoid, yet still lets it control you? The reality of being dangerous. In a world that thrives on comfort and consensus, authenticity often feels like a threat. Society tends to label those who refuse to play by its rules, those who speak plainly, act with conviction, and reject shallow validation, as cold, intense, even dangerous. These judgments are rarely about actual harm. Rather, they reflect discomfort. A person who doesn't conform exposes the fragility of collective illusions. His presence unsettles not because of what he does, but because of what he doesn't pretend to be. To live with unflinching honesty is to accept exile from the familiar. When someone stops nodding along, when they refuse to sugarcoat truths or dilute their values to appease others, they are quickly cast as difficult. That label is a shield, a way for others to deflect the mirror being held up to them. In truth, what they call dangerous is simply clarity, a mind that sees without flinching, a heart that speaks without deception. The cost of this clarity is real. Misunderstanding becomes a regular companion. Invitations fade. People withdraw, not because you've harmed them, but because you've stopped playing a part that made them feel secure. There is a quiet grief in losing a sense of belonging, especially when you know it's the price of staying true to yourself. Yet, on the other side of that loss lies a profound gift: the ability to see who remains. Those who value the real you, not the version that conforms, become unmistakably clear. You gain sovereignty over your own self, no longer tethered to approval or performance. And in that space, between solitude and self-respect, something rare emerges: peace. Not the kind that comes from external harmony, but the kind born from inner alignment. That is the true power of being dangerous. Not the ability to intimidate others, but the refusal to betray yourself. Conclusion: the price and gift of freedom. The dangerous man's journey is not marked by hatred or vengeance, but by profound self-possession. His silence is not emptiness, it is mastery. His restraint is not weakness, it is discipline. He does not shout to be heard because he does not need the world's approval to exist. He knows who he is. And in a world built on conformity, that alone makes him dangerous. Freedom is rare. It is not given. It is seized. And it always comes at a cost. To own yourself fully, to live without asking permission, means walking away from comfort, recognition, and even belonging. The systems around us depend on obedience, on people who stay silent, stay small, stay in line. But the free man stands apart, not because he wants to be above others, but because he refuses to be beneath anyone, including his own fears. His rebellion is quiet but complete. He does not protest. He transcends. He does not react. He chooses. He is not moved by the praise or condemnation of the crowd. And that is what makes him unshakable. So the question is not whether freedom is worth it. The question is whether you are willing to pay its price. Will you choose to own yourself, no matter the cost? Will you step beyond the need to be liked, to be safe, to be understood? Because in the end, freedom is not comfort. It is not applause. It is not safety. Freedom is the highest form of rebellion, the decision to belong entirely to yourself. And that is the most dangerous thing you can be.